Hello and welcome. This session is sponsored by the NSF ATE Pathways to Innovation project. The project focuses on strategic employer engagement to drive program innovation. Pathways to Innovation leverages the Business Industry Leadership Team, or BILT, a proven model for employer engagement developed by the National Convergence Technology Center. BILT supports the development of innovative, industry-responsive curriculum and can serve as a critical foundation for competitive ATE proposals. The BILT model cultivates employer relationships that yield workforce intelligence at a depth and with a frequency to facilitate continuous program improvement and innovation. This helps ensure your graduates are workforce ready. Within Pathways to Innovation, three complementary activities support the strategic engagement of employers by community colleges. The BILT Academy helps teams of faculty and employers collaborate through a co-leadership structure. The Grant Seeker Academy mentors college teams to use BILT's essential elements as a foundation for building competitive proposals responsive to employer needs. And ATE Answers supports new grantees with on-demand employer engagement resources. Today's session features Dr. Ann Beheeler, founder of the BILT model. Dr. Beheeler is Principal Investigator of Pathways to Innovation and the National Convergence Technology Center. She'll share how a BILT can inform long-term planning and resource development for innovation at your college. Information about participating in the next cohort of the BILT Academy and Grant Seeker Academy are provided at the end of the session.
Our outline for today contains many things, and you will find that we're going to be moving rather quickly through them. However, you are able to contact me via the email address at the end of this presentation anytime you wish if you have questions. And additionally, we're going to show you some other resources that you might want to use that are related to the BILT. We're going to start with the value proposition for the BILT. Why would you bother to do this? It's a different approach. Why bother to learn? Well, it's definitely important. We're also going to talk about the essential elements of the BILT. What we do in our work is fully fledged, the BILT model, all the details, but you don't necessarily need to do everything, and you may want to look at it a little bit differently and adapt to what you need. We'll also talk about the recommended number of BILT meetings and what they're used for. We'll talk about BILT membership and how you would go about recruiting those people. We'll talk about the pro forma job skills. I always start with a list of job skills that I think they're going to want and allow them to add, change, and delete to that list. We'll also talk about the actual process of executing the job skills analysis, face-to-face meeting, and the web meetings that I'm going to recommend. I think we can all agree that we want our students to complete our degrees and certificates, and we want them to get jobs readily. Also, we want our employers to be highly engaged and ready to help us on all sorts of different things, including alignment of curriculum and also including basically helping us with our students, helping to recruit our students. Implementing the BILT is a method for getting to both of those goals, and it's proven to work. Businesses are not just advisors. They are co-leaders of your work, and the approach benefits the students, faculty, and the BILT members alike, and it can be used for many different disciplines. I've actually used it for all sorts of CTE type disciplines, but you can use it for other disciplines that are semi-CTE, like technical writing. I've done that sort of thing as well. Let's talk about how the BILT actually does benefit students. Students that are in a BILT-led program are more likely to get hired or more likely to be interviewed by members from your BILT than those who just submit an application cold. I will say that the BILT gets very protective of the students in their program, and they seek them out first. The students also will get mentoring along the way from the BILT members. We often have them come and present employer panels, and sometimes we ask them to mentor a group of students directly. And because they help with workshops such as resume building, mock interviews, a day in the life, job shadowing, etc., the students definitely benefit. And I cannot emphasize enough that the built members are much more engaged than someone that you just do a cold call on and ask if you can do a job shadow. This really does help to have them in the co-leadership role. Faculty also, truly, I believe they want to teach students what businesses want to hire. One of the sadder things is if we have a student that graduates from one of our programs and they've worked very hard for their degree, but at the end of it, what they know is not what the employers want. That mismatch needs to be avoided. The built members can help with all sorts of events with the faculty, including often providing free or reduced cost faculty development for the faculty. And then the built members benefit. You will hear me say this again, but every person has a WIFM, a what's in it for me. Why am I bothering to do what I do? They want the pipeline of workforce-ready job candidates to be expanded, especially in IT and cybersecurity, where I am now. There is such a need for more qualified workers that they'll do just about anything for you in order to get them. And many other careers are similar in terms of needing more people in the pipeline that are qualified. The business people also want to have professional relationships with one another, especially the small and medium-sized businesses. This is an opportunity for the small and medium-sized businesses to socialize and actually talk tech with the larger companies in an environment that is not threatening and is not giving away any proprietary secrets. So it is a really good relationship for people to build in with their fellow built members. It also provides meaningful community involvement. I know that lots of us do volunteer work for our community, but it's nice to do something that you're not just volunteering, you're volunteering for a very good cause. And actually, the WIFM is you might get a very qualified employee out of the deal. And finally, they feel their contributions are valued. One of the sadder things is to have someone go to a business advisory council this year and give their absolute best advice to the college, and then come back next year and realize the college has done nothing. If you decide to implement the built, and I hope you do, you will have a mechanism by which they will know that they were heard, even if you can't do every single thing that they want. Now let's listen to our built chair. He will give us an intro from his perspective of this topic.
My name is Matt Glover. I'm the chairman of the Built. And the role really is to help universities and colleges, and quite frankly, high school organizations understand where we are from a future perspective so that we can go through the process to develop the appropriate curriculum so that people like me, I'm also a chief technology officer for a health and wellness company, can hire those people right out of the school. It's super important that we get them with the right skills, because if you just have a degree and you come into the market, then and you are not skilled in the things that the business leaders need, then you have to go through a process of OJT, or on the job training, to acquire the skills necessary for you to get there. By being a part of this process as a built person, a built member, I allow for a fast forwarding for those students, and quite frankly the businesses, to be able to get ready students, ready employees right out of the box. So it's a critical step in accelerating America forward.
As I mentioned earlier, the built implementation can be adapted to your needs. Depending on the most critical need for your program, you might, for example, need to have more enrollments, more students boosted in your current existing program to enlarge the pipeline. The built members can focus on recruitment first if that is your biggest need. Ultimately, though, curriculum alignment through the built is an important backbone for prolonged engagement. So you definitely do want to do that part. Now let's talk about the essential elements of the built implementation. It's very important that the businesses co-lead your program. If you leave them in an advisory role, you won't get the benefit that you will from having them co-lead your program. It's also extremely important for them to participate in determining how they engage with you. How many hours do they have to work with you? What can they do to help you? And also what they see as most important. Ultimately, you do need to have them prioritize a list of knowledge, skills, and abilities that they want graduates to have 12 to 36 months into the future. And usually that is done annually, and it's done in a face-to-face manner. When we talk about knowledge, skills, and abilities, this is not just a general discussion of kind of the things that they want. It's specifically down to the granular level of what specific knowledge areas need to be covered and what do the students really need to be able to do and what abilities do they need. Further, they need to predict labor market demand. We need to know that there really are jobs out there for the position that you're preparing for. It's not appropriate for a college to graduate students that have a wonderful degree that is mismatched with industry needs. I also find that it's very important for the business people to predict trends. I don't know about your college, but it takes a while to get a new program in through my college, and it takes a while to really enhance it significantly. So it's important to hear trends from them on a regular basis so that you can kind of get a jump on what changes are coming down. And I didn't specifically explain this well, but why are we looking 12 to 36 months into the future? It's a similar reason. It takes a while for us to develop new curriculum, to modify our programs, to update our programs. So we want to always be looking forward. And with respect to the essential elements, the faculty must cross-reference the KSAs once they're prioritized by the BILT in the job skills meeting and use that to identify gaps and then update their curriculum to address the needs of business. That doesn't mean that the college has to do every single thing that the business person wants or the business group wants, but it does mean that they need to update as much as they can aligned with what the business team wants and then provide the businesses with feedback regarding what they could and couldn't do. Recommended meetings. I know that most CTE-based programs and colleges have to have at least one, if not two, meetings annually. I suggest that one of the meetings annually be the one to prioritize the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities. It's important to do that face-to-face because the discussion amongst the BILT members is just as important as the actual voting. The other 2 or 3 meetings that you hold annually can be web meetings to save the BILT members time, especially if you're living in an area where the traffic is tough. It's a really good idea to have 2 or 3 other meetings to touch base throughout the year and have those meetings be held via web meeting. At those meetings, the things that might be provided there are feedback on the implementation of the KSAs. The employers may highlight upcoming trends. The faculty might ask for advice or on any particular item. Maybe what do you think about putting artificial intelligence into our manufacturing program? They could ask anything that they want and get answers from the experts. And also too, this gives you an opportunity to put before the BILT members opportunities for them to be involved in other events such as panels, interviewing students, mock interviews for students, etc. Some considerations: strong relationships, and this is all about building relationships. Produce engagement and produces grads that get hired. Now, relationships aren't built in a day, so to speak. They take time, but if this process is consistently applied over several months and several years, you are likely to get a great deal of extra help from your business people. And again, consider the WIFM for everyone. One thing I didn't point out earlier when I mentioned the word WIFM is the what's in it for me will vary by individual. So I try really hard to talk to at least the most engaged and actually to the least engaged people on my BILT annually so that I can get down to why are they doing what they are doing, or why did they stop coming if they stopped coming to the meetings. Labor market demand, again, it's important to know how many positions are open and whether it's going to grow. Think again, too, about how long it takes to get curriculum modified. Will there be need 12 to 36 months in the future? And are there other groups in your area or other groups that you can work with in the same kind of program? What we have learned in the National Science Foundation work that I've done, we have learned that we can work together with many other colleges across the state, across the region, um, whatever, because there's really no real competition among programs anymore. There may be what I would call co-opetition, where people are working together to achieve the same goals, and it really does help to copy and steal everything from each other, actually share with each other, so that each college does not have to invest all the money that they would need to invest in order to produce a whole program. One thing I will caution you of, do not rely on national data. All hiring is local. If you look at national data for labor market demand, it's not a good indicator of what the demand might be in your particular area. Let's talk just a minute about some reflection here. What's the makeup of your current business advisory council? And by the way, you can still call it an advisory council and have it function like a BILT. How often do they meet? If it's once a year, I would allege that if a person that you want to have a relationship with is you only see them once a year, I would suggest that it's going to be difficult to build a very strong relationship. How many companies actually participate in your advisory committee and who attends? I found at one point, this is kind of a little story to tell. At one point, I started looking at the advisory committees that were in place at a given institution, and we found that some of the people that were on the list had actually passed away, but their families were living in the same home or at the same address, and so the letter just kept being received, but we did not get them to attend. So it's very important to know who's involved, make sure that the companies represent a cross section of your needs within your community or your local region. Do the members have content knowledge in your area? Sometimes I also found that we had people on the team, the BILT team, who really were not subject matter experts and could not particularly prioritize the KSA. So it's important for them to have content knowledge. And again, do they represent the employers that can hire your students? Now, I'm not saying that you can't have other companies, larger companies that absolutely demand a four-year degree or master's level candidates, because that helps you see forward. But you must have a lot of members on your BILT team, or the primary group of members needs to be the ones who would or do hire your grads. And then again, I always like to have a mixture of small, medium, and large employers on the team if you can do it, knowing that the small and medium firms are the ones where we mostly place our community college grads. Who do you want to recruit for your BILT? First of all, I'm going to say that the BILT members must be technical. That does not necessarily tell us what level job they may be doing within a company. They could be very high-level technical executives, perhaps a vice president of innovation, vice president of strategy. As long as they're technical, it's probably helpful for the folks that are on the BILT to have a long-term view of the industry. First-line hiring managers are important because they know what they've hired and what they need to hire. Technicians are useful in the group, but don't expect them to necessarily have a future focus. The HR representatives are fine so long as they're not the sole rep for a given company. Now, you might say, why not just have HR representatives? The HR representatives, unless they are technical themselves, get their information about the knowledge, skills, and abilities that the hiring manager wants to hire secondhand. They get it from the hiring manager, but then they may not have the future focus so that they can help you identify KSAs for the future. And then we get to faculty. We want faculty to come to these meetings, but they need to not dominate. One of the problems that oftentimes occurs is that faculty are very defensive of what's out there in their program, and they think the BILT members are going to come in and change everything they're doing. That's usually not the case, but the faculty really in these meetings need to mostly listen and ask and answer questions. Then they take the information from the job skills analysis and they align their current curriculum with the employer needed knowledge, skills, and abilities to identify gaps. How do you recruit members? Well, get help. Your college president and your board members are connected with company owners in your region. Ask them to make introductions for you. That works. Also, it works to work with a Chamber of Commerce and work with that group to get introductions. It also works to work with economic development corporations. In that case, you may be working with a lot of smaller firms, or maybe in a process of recruiting a larger firm to come to your area. But those are all good sources for getting people that would care about your program producing workforce-ready grads. Then network with your network. Do you know people in the area who would be appropriate for your team? And then ask them who else they know that might be appropriate for the team. It's a very high touch operation to build the BILT team and get the right people on it, but it certainly can be done. And I would say that do not use email to try to recruit people, especially if you don't know them at all. And also oftentimes things go to spam when you weren't intending for them to, and you never really know whether they just ignored your email or whether it went to spam and they didn't happen to check on the spam. I highly recommend you take the time to phone potential uh, BILT members. The advantage of that is you can contact them, and if they themselves say they don't have time, you can ask them to refer you to somebody else within their company. Or alternatively, you can mail printed letters that basically follow a script customized to whatever you need. And I would suggest that you hand address them and put a real stamp on them to get the letter opened. I actually fell into this tip because I had to do 4 different BILT members for a massive grant at the same time, and we were inviting 200 new people to be involved. Well, obviously I couldn't call 200 people and I didn't have enough staff to call 200 people. So we printed the letters and we mailed them. And it actually happens that they were printed on a Saturday and I had difficulty getting the envelopes to print through the printer. So I had the student assistant help hand address them, and we put real stamps on them because I didn't have the code for the postage meter. And it turns out that the chair that you've already heard from said that's the only reason he opened the letter. He doesn't get letters that are hand addressed, nor letters with a real stamp on them. And we do have letter and phone script templates that are available. They're in the resources, and you can also ask my advice if you wish to email. Now, building a BILT culture. It's important for you to provide faculty and staff with some professional development regarding the BILT benefits and the mechanics. Don't expect people to just suddenly want to embrace having the business and industry team co-lead your work. To me, it seems very reasonable, but it's probably not necessarily going to be well received by everybody. You might schedule a time at your college where you bring the deans and the faculty coordinators and the key faculty together to actually listen to this BILT webinar and talk about it. You can also have repeated discussions amongst the group to answer questions so that the faculty can embrace the process. I will say that it's very important for the faculty members to embrace the process, recognizing that they'll get the prioritized KSAs from the industry people. They will cross-reference it to their curriculum, and they can do whatever they can do to meet the need, but recognizing that there may be some things that just flat can't be done because it would require an expenditure of major size for equipment or something else. Then it's important to have administrative support. And I'm not talking about an admin to support you. It's important, well, that's important too, but it's very important to have administration from the college, at least from the dean level, supporting your efforts. Sources for creating your pro forma list of KSAs. You know what your student learning outcomes are in your existing courses. You can use those as a starter. But associations often have lists of competencies that you can add in to your pro forma list. Governmental agencies sometimes have lists. If you happen to be dealing with anything cybersecurity related, the NIST and NICE group have lots of KSAs. And as we go further along with our IT Skill Standards grant, you're going to be able to tap me to get access to our list of KSAs that have been validated nationally. Now, I'm not saying that nationally is necessarily going to fit in your region, but it's a starting point. Also, Career One Stop from the Department of Labor has a list of KSAs for some contemporary careers, actually some emerging careers, and so you can use some of those as well. You can also talk with some of your local business leaders about their critical needs. Why are they having trouble filling the jobs that are open for which they can't find qualified individuals? What knowledge are they missing? What skills are they missing? What abilities are their candidates missing? And then again, you can use SLOs, the student learning outcomes, from an existing program that happens to be exemplary somewhere in the nation or in your region to contribute to your list. Do not, under any circumstances, assume that you know what your businesses want. You must ask them. Do not assume that because you've met with your business advisory councils for years, that they're necessarily going to be able to design your curriculum from those discussions. You really do need the KSAs. And the pro forma list is just a starting point. I recommend that you have no more than 20 to 25 KSAs per hour that you are willing to meet, and then allow the employers to add, subtract, or change. And sometimes it turns out that initially, at least, it's largely a list of knowledge areas as opposed to a lot of skills and a lot of abilities. And again, discussion is extremely important. Before your built meeting, your actual built meeting, where you're going to prioritize your KSAs or where you're going to even talk about recruitment, there are many things you need to do. You need to come up with an idea of when you'd like to hold it and where you can get facilities on your campus to hold the meeting. You want to invite the members, plan to invite them at least 3 weeks in advance. 3 to 4 weeks in advance is usually good. And you need to realize that you need to invite probably 2 or 3 times as many employers as you want to have attend. Why? Well, some people will have to say no from the get-go, that they can't come because there's a conflict. And those that say yes sometimes get overcome by events on a given day and have great difficulty being able to get there even though they wanted to. The goal is to have 10 or 15 built members actually in attendance, because that helps to make the work less centered on just a few business needs. No college can be an on-the-job training opportunity for just a single business, or at least that's not necessarily a good idea, even if the business is large. It's also important before you schedule that meeting that you have your pro forma list either already together or you know how to get it completed, because you don't want to be scurrying at the last minute to get together the pro forma list of KSAs. And you can refer to the toolkit for best practices and reminders. There's a whole sequence of timings for reminding people to come, and that's actually in the Built Toolkit that we will reference actually in the resources.
Thanks for watching today. To ask questions about Built or the Pathways to Innovation project, contact information for Dr. Beheeler is provided here. To access resources such as the Built Toolkit, or to apply for the next cohort of the Built Academy or Grant Seeker Academy, visit our website at pathwaystoinnovation.org.